Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Back at her, back in front of the camera here. We're doing another. I had a lot of fun with this last week. Honestly, another live Q&A for you guys here. We got a couple questions banked that we'll kick things off with. And I'm going to make sure we get these tweets going out. A little bit of Avs news today. Small update on Valeri Nichushkin, I would say. Plus, we have the news yesterday from the BMW Championship Pro-Am where Gabe Landeskog spoke to the media. So any questions you guys got about that? A couple of the questions that we have ready to go are about salary cap and how do the Avs make this work? And hey, that's great. We're super optimistic that well, suddenly, very quickly, within the course of about 24 hours, it's starting to look and feel like the Avs can count on getting Gabe Landeskog and Valeri Nichushkin back. I've talked about it all summer. That's what the Avs are preparing for. But very quickly, it looks like that might be the case. I'm going to shoot a couple tweets here, letting folks know that we're here. We're live. Thank you guys for jumping in. Your Avs, NHL, questions answered. Same rules as last week, guys. Get those questions in the chat. We've got a couple that we'll start off with, and we're going to go for as long as we've got questions. So if we get 5 questions and we answer those 5 and we're done in 15 minutes, then we'll jump out. But we went for an hour last week because you guys just kept coming with the heat, kept bringing the great questions. So load up that chat. If you got questions, your friends got questions, text your friend, tell them to get in the chat as well. Like I said, we've got a handful to kick things off. Live. We'll be taking questions for as long as they last. Get that link out there. Jay back there running the board, as always. I keep throwing this one on him, making him just like, hey, come film me whenever I say to come film me. And he does it. It's amazing. I'm going to do one last retweet here. Thank you guys. Bear with me. Let's kick the conversation off by talking a little bit about Valeri Nichushkin. Off that conversation. Talking Val. Come ask questions. Yeah, good, right? Perfect. Okay. Valeri Nichushkin. It wasn't an interview that he did necessarily. Former Russian national team scout did an interview with sports.ru. All in Russian. Evan Rowell, Colorado Hockey Now, was the first one to kind of bring it to attention here. I had the Mark, the Guerilla Sports resident Russian, help me. We read the article through together, and he went through and just kind of verified some of the different quotes. Here's what people are saying. And essentially here's what it is. Quote, according to Nichushkin, the picture is 95% clear. He returns in November, fully ready, trains, works with a psychologist, and continues the season. That's it. In the article, they do also say Valeri Nichushkin is currently training, continuing his rehab, and working with a psychologist right now in Russia in preparation for coming back. The article also claims that Nathan MacKinnon makes as many as 2 calls per week to Valeri Nichushkin, telling him, hey, we want to see you get better. We want to see you come back, and checking in to see how he's doing, make sure that he's feeling better, make sure that rehab process is going right. The other interesting thing in here is that they, again, this is Sergei Fedotov, former Russian national team scout, knows Valeri Nichushkin back in Russia right now. does say, quote, although there are some players and people in management who would probably like to solve this issue differently, acknowledging what we've known for a while now, that the third incident did not sit well with many folks inside the Avalanche organization. They also say in the article that the attempt to terminate Valeri Nichushkin's contract came straight from the owner. So this is the first time I think we've really seen something as it relates to Valeri Nichushkin, someone who you can probably reasonably assume is on the side of Valeri Nichushkin. This is the first time we've seen them say, acknowledge the fact that there is some animosity, that there are either individuals in management or players in that locker room who do not want Valeri Nichushkin coming back, have tried to, they tried to get rid of him, tried to buy out the contract. He also does say in the article that he confirms what we knew, that the Avs can't trade Valeri Nichushkin. They're kind of stuck with him, and that the plan is for him to come back. November 13th is the date that Valeri Nichushkin is technically eligible to return, pending approval from the league and the NHL's player, and the NHLPA, the Players Association. So we'll see, but this makes it clear. I've been saying all summer that I thought there was a good chance Valeri Nichushkin stayed in Russia. This makes it clear. Valeri Nichushkin's only intention is to come back and play in the NHL for the Colorado Avalanche. So it's August 22nd right now. We've got all of September, all of October, and a couple of weeks in November before that date even rolls around. So we're still a ways out, but I thought that was somewhat significant coming out today, the update on Valeri Nichushkin. We're going to get into some questions as it relates to that. And if you guys have any more, keep them coming in the chat here. And let's start things off. On Twitter from @MattyBoy182. Hey guys, if Gabe and Val are back, will the Avs be cap compliant? If not, what could they do to get there? First of all, Jay, can you hear the squeakiness of this chair? Perfect. It's squeaking like crazy, but as long as you guys can't hear it. All right, so I did a little bit of digging on this one because I wanted to be absolutely certain. Right now, if you go to Puckpedia, the Avs show as under the cap. That is with Valeri Nichushkin's salary not counting against the cap, but with Gabe Landeskog's salary counting against the cap. So right now, the Avs sit. And again, I'm gonna do some rounding here because it's I'm not gonna go into every single decimal. The Avs are sitting just shy of $86 million. The salary cap is of course $88 million. The Avs are sitting at 85 and some change. So they've got just under $3 million technically, again, as it sits right now, to play with. Well, Valeri Nichushkin makes 6.125. Putting the Avs at about $92 million with his cap hit, meaning that you got about $4 million that you got to figure out somewhere to make it work, assuming Valeri Nichushkin is coming back. So where could that come from? The one that I saw a bunch of people, of course, floating out there is Sam Girard. I can't imagine that's something that's even remotely close to on the Avs radar right now, would be making their defense worse. I don't think that's something they're interested in, and I don't think it's something that they are going to do. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with that is that number includes all three of Oliver Shillington, Eric Brandstrom, Calvin DeHaan, and Jacob McDonald. So it's reasonable to assume that probably two of those four players are I mean, 2 of those 4 are easy to move. Jacob McDonald will not be with the NHL club to start the season, so there's $775 right there. And then I think it's reasonable to assume that if that is the situation, you're getting Valeri Nichushkin back, that it's probably Oliver Shillington or Eric Brandstrom that's passing through waivers here. And that gets you a little bit closer. Now, geesh, I mean, that also includes Yoel Kiviranta, Chris Wagner, and Nikolai Kovalenko. Again, those are all sub-$1 million deals, but if you're suddenly adding Gabe Landeskog and Valeri Nichushkin, well, that's at least 2 of those going away. So, I mean, the real number, you're not really looking at $4 million that you've got to find a way to shave. When you really dig into it, you're probably looking somewhere between, 1.5-ish, maybe up to 2. I'd say closer to 1.5. So we'll see. They've got some options. Again, when you just look at it on paper and you add Valeri Nichushkin back in, it looks pretty bleak. But as you continue to go through this, like I said, it's easy to bury. Jacob McDonald won't be there, so there's $775 immediately off. It's easy to bury one of Brandstrom or Shillington if you need to, and then it's probably going to be pretty damn easy to bury Kiviranta, Chris Wagner, and maybe one other. So they're not that far off. There will be a little bit of work that they'll have to do to make sure that they are cap compliant. A little bit of work, but it shouldn't be that hard. Again, the Avs have been planning for the real possibility that both those players come back. Moving on here, at Stompin' Klompin on Twitter. What letter grade would you give C-Mac since his promotion to general manager? For me, his tenure has seen high highs and low lows, from the mess with Rydro to the team-friendly Duren contracts. I would give Chris McFarland a solid B, pushing a B+. And here's why. I totally hear the Ryan Johansson, Tomas Tatar things from last year. What I like about what Chris McFarland did there was he recognized these aren't great fits and we need to move on. And he did that in season. Both those players that I just named, Ryan Johansson, Tomas Tatar, were brought in as guys that were highly thought that they were guys that could make a real difference for the Avs. They weren't, and they did not sit on their hands at all. They made the moves and improved their team. So Chris McFarland is a guy who's not afraid to say, oops, I messed up, and make the correction. And that's what I like about it. You can see GMs sometimes go out of their way to make sure that their moves look positive, and they'll stick by their guns and they'll go down with the ship. Chris McFarland has showed a reluctancy to do stuff like that. Has it been maybe quite the same? Everything that they touch turns to gold that we saw when he was the AGM and Joe Sakic was a general manager? Maybe not. But I think Chris McFarland has done a good job, and when he's made mistakes, I think he's been quick to remedy them. And I also think that he's leading this team from the standpoint of, this is a Stanley Cup contender, and we are going to treat every year as such. So I'd say a solid B to a B+, with room for improvement. And I'd be willing to bet you Chris would say the same thing himself. Let's start at the top here with the chat from Anthony. Avs always have PTOs at training camp. Who do you think the Avs invite this season? Here's my kind of bold PTO prediction for the Avs. Nobody. We just ran through it. I just don't think there's enough room. You know the name who I was actually bummed because the blue line is packed. It's too crowded. We were just going over names that I was saying, yeah, you're probably having to cut a couple of these guys. Cut in air quotes there if you listen to audio only later on. Tyson Barrie was the only guy that I could think of who's still out there that, theoretically I was saying like, well, wow, if you could get Tyson Barrie on a PTO for $885K, then great. I think he's a fantastic power play 2 quarterback. Great friends with Nathan McKinnon. He could be a third pairing guy for you, et cetera, et cetera. The Avs blue line is too crowded, and I just don't think it makes sense at all. But he's the only guy. I don't think the Avs have room, and especially with now this report today and what they know about Gabe Landeskog that he shared with the rest of the public yesterday, I just don't think the Avs are going to have room for PTOs. I think any type of player like that they'd be looking to, try out, they're going to be looking internally. Think guys like Jean-Luc Foudy, think guys like Oscar Lawson, guys like Nikolai Kovalenko, guys like Sam Malinsky. So I don't think we'll see any PTOs. I've been wrong. I've definitely been wrong. You can get a PTO. Not unlike what the Avs did last year and send a couple of those guys to the American League. But just with where the money's sitting right now, I don't think PTOs are super in the cards for the Avs. From Anthony Camera. Cool name. Can Val practice with the team before he's allowed back? We don't have clarity on this, and the last time I reached out to people within the organization, and it's been a couple months, admittedly, it was right after the end of the season, sounds like they didn't have a lot of clarification either at the time. Going based off of how these went in the past, namely last, in January when Valeri Nichushkin last went through this, it was multiple phases where he was cleared to return to team activities and practice, but not cleared to return to games yet. We'll see him being suspended without pay until November 13th. Likely tells me that he cannot get on the ice for official team activities until that date. And maybe that's the minutia of this, is that on November 13th, he's cleared to return to practice, but not quite the games. We don't have clarity on that, but I'll work on that for you guys. We'll see if we can get some clarity on when he's allowed to get back on the ice. But keep in mind with all this, and it was part of what Chris McFarland talked to us about in the season-ending presser, this is all, prepare for the 2020 word, unprecedented. There's only been one other player who's gotten to this phase in the player assistance program, and it was Theo Fleury a long time ago. And there's different mandates and rules and things like that now. So we'll have to see. Chloe Social, is that our Chloe? Is that Schlo? Chloe Social on in the chat here. Do we think that Val comes back and makes the same mistake again, or is this time really different? Look, here's the real harsh, honest reality of the situation. There's zero faith. None. Zero faith that Val Nichushkin can do it and stay straight and clean and can do this without getting in trouble. It's 3 strikes. 3 strikes in 13 months. So I think if you're betting, you'd put your money on he probably makes the same mistake again. And then it's a year-long suspension and the Avs can probably terminate. And all you can do if you're the Avs organization or if you're an Avs fan, all you can do at this point is hope that Val Nichushkin, that it is clicked, that it has made sense in his brain. Because we heard the guys in the locker room last year. Jack Johnson said straight up, Val made his choices. He made his choices. All you can do is hope that he won't make those same choices. But unfortunately, the track record says he probably will. So it's a true wait and see if he's working with a psychologist. And he's truly doing everything in his power to get back to the Avs and the NHL. You hope that he got it. and that he can come back next year and be the Val that not only that you want to see him be on the human side, but that the Avs need him to be on the hockey side. So you'd like to think that the third time and being suspended for 6 months and removed from the team in the league for 6 months in the middle of the playoffs will be the one that drives it home. But you thought the incident in Seattle would be the moment that drove it home, or the incident in Toronto would be the moment that really drove it home. And now we're hoping that the moment in Dallas is the one to drive it home. We'll see. Thoughts on the Yeager-McGroarty trade? I'm surprised it took this long. I'm also surprised that the Jets held on as long as they did to McGroarty to just go on a 1-for-1 for a good prospect. Not a great one, but a good prospect. And I actually like what the Penguins are doing. I think the Penguins are, you've got Sidney Crosby, you're always in it. You got Crosby and Malkin, you're always going to be competitive. And I think they added Cody Glass, who's looking for a little bit of a redemption tour. And now McGroarty, who, they're going to see, can we interject some youth into this lineup and get something a little bit more out of it. I like the swings. I like the swing for Pittsburgh. I'm fine with it for Winnipeg. The player McGroarty wasn't going to play there. He wasn't going to report. I guess it wasn't that he wasn't going to report, but he expressed, not interested in playing for Winnipeg. So they get a good prospect out of it. Again, good, not great. Chloe Social again. Do you think the Avs are going to make some big trades this year, especially if the Mikko extension isn't final? Look, I stand by the reporting that we did here at Guerilla Sports a couple weeks ago that deal is inching ever closer to the finish line as we get closer and closer to training camp. The word I still get is that the Avs do not want this to go into the season, and Elliot Friedman was reporting the same last week, that the general sense around the league is that deal is getting close to being done, and that teams have kind of started to dismiss any possibility that Mikko Rantanen could make his way to unrestricted free agency next summer. So, yeah, again, I think the Mikko extension gets done. The other thing is, I don't think the Avs are going to be in the market for big trades this year. And the reason is they are going to make 2 acquisitions in season that are going to be more significant than any player they could acquire via trade in Gabe Landeskog and Val Nichushkin. If you get those 2 players back, you make all the money work. I think that's the best team in the Western Conference. Now, could the Avs try to get, a little funny and a little funky and a little fun to make some moves near the trade deadline? Sure. But I think what they're really going to bank on is we're going to get 2 of our best players back in season after being without them for a long time. And those are going to be our additions. And we are going to trust that we've got a deep enough team to make a run at this. When is a deadline for teams to be cap compliant? From no in the chat. It is there's various different checkpoints that you have to be under certain dollar amounts and things like that. But really the honest answer is there's a time, there's a date in between preseason and regular season where, you've kind of got to be down to your final roster. You've got to be cap compliant heading into that first game. The issue for the Avs is not going to be being cap compliant at the start of the season. They will be more than okay in that department. The issue is going to be remaining cap compliant as these players make their way back into the lineup. That's going to be the part that's difficult. On opening night, on October 9th in Vegas, I am not at all worried about the Avs being cap compliant there. From FU 2006 in the chat, if Lecky is unavailable game 1, do you think Cal Ritchie or someone gets a chance to play on the top line? Or do you think the Avs run Mikko and Drouin with Mac? We were told in that presser from Chris McFarland that there was a good to fair chance Arturi Lehkonen would not be ready to go by game one. Well, he said that he probably wouldn't be ready to go by training camp. He didn't explicitly say game one of the regular season. You know, I like to operate these lines in pairs. And right now, my top two line pairs are McKinnon and Drouin with Rantanen and Middlestat. And you plug in Lehkonen somewhere there. So, you know, you're definitely going to be short if Lehkonen isn't ready to go for game one. I think Jared's going to want to spread that, especially if you're no Landeskog, no Nichushkin, no Lehkonen to start the season. I think he's going to want to spread that around a little bit, and I think we saw good enough things out of Rantanen and Middlestat in the playoffs that that's going to be an option. Sheesh. Yeah. So, you know, one thing you can be sure of is Jared Bednar will always situationally go back to Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon. But to start the season, I think there's a good chance that maybe we see him have those two split up to spread the wealth around a little bit, especially while you're going to be so shorthanded with your top six guys to start the season. I feel a sneeze coming on. Colorado Avs champ. Who do you think will be the next former Av to join the broadcast booth on altitude? Which former players would do well in a role like that? I know Eric Johnson is really expressing a lot of interest in once he's done playing of you know, potentially joining the media side of things. I know they do a lot of work with Kyle Quincy, who's here locally. I don't know if he's necessarily super interested in joining the broadcast side, but I know he's part of the alumni stuff. I could see maybe Milan Hajduk being part of that. Again, heavily involved on the alumni side. You know, they've got Johnny Mitchell in there. They've got John Michael Lyles. They got Mark Rycroft. Man, I'm just racking my brain for individuals who not only do I think would be good, but also aren't working in hockey somewhere. Because, you know, a name like Alex Tanguay comes to mind, but he's behind the bench in the NHL. Yeah, I'd say Kyle Quincy. You know, Andrew Cogliano is another one. He's working in the front office. Maybe on a super outside thought. Maybe a guy like Darren Helm would be someone who's interesting and you know, very charismatic and willing to chat. Jumping into the booth on altitude, I don't necessarily know, but I'd also say maybe Jack Johnson would be another one that I could see when his playing career is done. Again, from Anthony, what's better, pasta salad, potato salad? They're equal or they're both gross? I think potato salad is gross. I think, yeah, Jay just looked at me. I figured you probably are a potato salad weirdo. Pasta salad, I'm fine with, but there is always the disconnect between like the temperature of the pasta on my tongue and my brain, where it's like, this is pasta, this is supposed to be hot. And so, like, I think I've had pasta salad that I like. I don't love pasta salad. Again, it just doesn't make sense in my head. I have not had potato salad that I like. I think it's gross. Any official word? This is from Sean Nelson. Any official word on Ryjo's breach of contract? What it was? No official word yet. But the reporting out there seems to be that Philadelphia is trying to make the argument that Ryan Johansson, I don't necessarily want to say lied about an injury, but that it seems like they're making the assertion that Ryan Johansson only brought up the injury when it was presented to him that he'd be going to the American Hockey League. Ryan Johansson and his agent have come out and said that they were forthcoming from the beginning, that he's dealt with not only personal doctors and third-party physicians, but team doctors as well, and they all corroborate that he has an injury that requires surgery that has been scheduled. That's the only thing that I can think of, is that he showed up, you know, talked with them, said, yep, I'm doing great, feeling good, scored a goal last night, excited for a fresh start. And then he got there, they waived him and said, you'll be reporting to Lehigh Valley. And then he was like, oh, did I not mention this hip of mine that's really bothering me? So that's what it seems like. No official word on it, though. I'm definitely following that one because it's going to be super interesting. It also has implications for salary cap hits for the Nashville Predators, who are right now eating half of that salary in the trade with the Colorado Avalanche. So we'll keep an eye on that. Material breach, I thought, was an interesting choice of words for that contract termination. And it's going to be interesting if they have any kind of proof that says, yeah, we talked to Ryan Johansson. He said nothing about an injury until we told him to head to Lehigh Valley. That, I do think, would make things interesting. From Rise Hall, based on what we've seen up till now, who would you pick to fill the bottom 2 D slots out of Malinsky, Shillington, DeHaan, and Brandstrom? Based on what I've seen up till right this moment, I'd be Sam Malinsky and Calvin DeHaan. But keep in mind, I've also had very limited in-person exposure to Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Shillington. I do know those are 2 guys that their past clubs deemed weren't good enough to bring back. Now, again, these are both high upside guys that fit really well with what the Avs do and with what Jared Bednar likes in his defensemen. So I completely understand why they were brought in, and I also absolutely see the upside. But if you're asking me right now on August 22nd, I'm more familiar with Sam Malinsky's game, and he looked comfortable at the NHL level, didn't look overwhelmed by the moment, and I can think of one egregious mistake he made in all of his NHL games. He contributed offensively, and he, again, never looked overwhelmed by the moment. I thought he was solid defensively. So right now on August 22nd, I'd give it to Malinsky and DeHaan, knowing that Calvin DeHaan's probably going to be in and out of the lineup, a little bit injury riddled, and you could have one of those other guys fill in. But when we get to camp here in a few weeks, ask me that question again, because it might, my mind might change after getting a better up close look at guys like Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Shillington. Shillington, keep in mind, with the NHL Player Assistance Program, we've not seen a ton of games out of him in the last couple of years, and Eric Brandstrom was on the East Coast, so we only got to see him up close twice a year. We always tell people YouTube responsibly when you're looking up highlights, or you're looking to scout a player or a prospect. So I'm anxious to see what those 2 guys look like up front. And I also do want to point out, because I believe it was a couple weeks ago when Megan Angley from DNVR was in here with me talking about this, and she made the point of, like, maybe we're giving Calvin DeHaan too much grace here. Maybe his spot isn't as locked up as we, are anticipating. So Malinsky and DeHaan for me right now on August 22nd, but let's talk again here in a month. Once again from No, do you think McFarland will be hesitant to give players besides McKinnon or Makar no moves or no trades after this whole nightmare with Nichushkin? No. I don't think that he's going to let this scare him off, especially if you're talking about guys like Mikko Rantanen, or core kind of cornerstone pieces for you. I was going to say Devon Taves, but he's already got his deal. Nathan McKinnon's got his long-term deal. Makar, I believe, I would be pretty shocked if he didn't, have a full no-move clause on his new deal that'll be coming up here in a few years. But no, I don't think that this will scare him off. I think you've got to really be hoping and praying that this thing with Val Nichushkin is a one-off, given that it's a one-off for the entire league's history almost at this point. From 182, Matty Boy in the chat, how many more seasons do you think the cup window is open for this current core? 5+, depending on how well they manage the roster. I'd say 5 solidly, where they are pretty set and forget contenders. Yeah. 5 years, maybe a little bit more, where to me, it's reasonable to have the expectation that they are at least contending and pushing for a Stanley Cup year over year. I think we should get to 2030 and one, I do believe this core will win another cup between now and 2030. At least one more. And I think that they're going to be competitive beyond that. I think if you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, truthfully, I think that's closer to the model that the Avs are probably on the trajectory for, where they won a Stanley Cup in 2009. And then again, like 8 years later, they won back-to-back. Was it 17 and 18, I believe? That, I think, is closer to where the Avs are in terms of what this window is going to look like, given that you've got Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen. Those types of players are special, especially if you're adding back in a guy like Gabe Landeskog. You hope the whole point of all of this is that he's going to be able to get back, maybe not 100% of the player he was, but that this isn't going to be something that will be shortening his career anymore. So I still think Avs fans have a hell of a ride in front of them. From FU 2006, I got to ask, is Tim Hortons worth trying? Never been to a city that has it, just curious. If you're a donut person, I think so. They've also got, I know Connor McGahey would pay money to have a tap run from Ontario all the way to his house of just their coffee. I know he really likes the coffee. I think their donuts are good. The Timbits are fantastic. I really like Timbits anytime I'm in Canada or Buffalo or Michigan or something like that. Always make sure to stop and get a little pack of Timbits, especially if I'm going to be in town for a couple days. I'll get a larger pack and, pick at them over the next day or two. And then they have hash browns. They've got a full breakfast menu as well. Especially if you're in Canada, if you're in a hockey city, it's worth going. They're big into hockey culture and stuff like that. There's one at the Hockey Hall of Fame. So yeah, I think Tim Hortons is at least worth trying if you're in the area. Colorado Avs champ with stars like McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar on the Avs. When can you realistically see another Patrick Waugh-like goaltender for the Avs? Patrick Waugh is a high bar to ask for, widely considered. I mean, pretty much it would be hard to find someone who would say he's not a top 3 goaltender of all time. I personally think we are potentially staring at the greatest goaltender of all time currently playing in Tampa Bay. But like I said, I think it's pretty undisputed. Patrick Waugh, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't have him in their top 3, even if you're, including guys like Brodeur and Hasek. For me, he's ahead of those guys. So that's a big ask, but look, they are really high on Nabokov, and this Askarov stuff I think is interesting. And I think that's a potential option for the Avs, especially when we're talking about trying to shed some money. But the organization's high on Annunen. I don't really see his ceiling as a true elite number 1. Goalies are weird. You never know. I think they've got a few options. I think they're going to give themselves some darts here to throw and see if they can't find a top tier goaltender, internally or whatever. So I think Patrick Waugh is a high bar, but it feels like the Avs have an exciting goaltender pipeline with Nabokov and for the first time in a while. From Anthony, even though the Avs are up against it cap-wise, do you think the Avs could try for a Crosby trade at the deadline if he doesn't sign an extension in Pitt? I don't see that as a deadline move. I think if Sidney Crosby, if Sidney Crosby isn't re-signing in Pittsburgh, which I would be pretty surprised by, he's probably going to go to the market next summer, in which case I would probably put the Avs right at the top of that list to land him. Look, I said something in a private conversation, it's probably 5 years ago, to someone, and I said, man, the Penguins are finally starting to slide and the Avs are on the up. I wonder if Sidney Crosby would ever consider riding off into the sunset, playing with Nathan MacKinnon. And that's a theory that's picked up a lot of steam, not because of me, but just in general over the last couple of years, with people kind of recognizing the same thing. And Nathan MacKinnon continuing to talk about those two desire to play together. Now they're going to get to do that for Team Canada next year, or this upcoming year in the Four Nations tournament, and then again in 2026 at the Olympics. But I don't think it's likely at all that Pittsburgh's going to move on from Crosby unless it was his decision. If Sidney Crosby were to ever be on the move, though, I would put the Avs at the top of the list to land him. That's, I think, the best way I can answer that. I'm not counting on it that he's ever going to move from Pittsburgh, but if he ever did, my guess would be he would have a high amount of interest in playing with Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche. From Bama Metcalf, you big DK Metcalf fan, big Seahawks fan. Let's say everyone is back. Gabe and Nuke, what does the fourth line look like? Who would be the top PK? If you are getting both of them back, I mean, you're honestly, potentially looking at a fourth line of roaring 20s. Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor. That's realistically what you're looking at. Looking at Lehkonen, MacKinnon, Drouin. This is the way I would do it. Like Lehkonen, MacKinnon, Drouin, Nichushkin, Middlestat, Rantanen. Probably Kovalenko with Richie and Landeskog. And then you put the 20s back together. Find me a deeper team than that anywhere in the NHL. You can't. That's what is so exciting about the prospect of both those players coming back and why you hope that the pain and the uncertainty of this summer will be worth it. And again, Kovalenko, that's assuming he can jump in. Real quick, there was just a thing that came in the bottom here. If both return, that's $3 million to be cut from Girard or Colton. Disagree. You do not have to make that deep of a cut. We ran through it at the top of the show. You're really only looking at, truthfully, again, the way that it's laid out right now, Puckpedia is 100% accurate with those players that have the opportunities to do that. But if you're getting back to that level, Kiviranta down to the AHL, not Parker Kelly. Damn it, I had it all in front of me. Chris Wagner down to the AHL. One of those, because right now you got Oliver Shillington, Eric Brandstrom, and Sam Malinsky really all going for one spot. Multiple of those guys can go away. You're really not going to be trying to cut down all that much. I'm not saying that Ross Colton and Sam Girard trades are off the board. I would be absolutely laid out floored if the Avs traded Sam Girard. I think I really do think that that's one that fans need to kind of let go of. Sam Girard is a legitimate top four defenseman, top two pairing defenseman. On half the teams in the league, he would be a top pairing guy tomorrow. The Avs are not going to move on from him in all likelihood. Again, nothing's impossible, but I would be absolutely floored if Sam Girard was the solution to get Gabe Landeskog and Valeri Nichushkin back into the lineup. Just don't see it happening. Also from Peter Mann, Landy and Buchagras are at the BMW Pro-Am. Anyone else noteworthy there? I haven't looked today. I know, Peyton Manning was there yesterday. I don't think there's any other Avs players that I know of that have been significantly involved. But I do know a bunch of them are back in town. I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Johnson was there. Wouldn't be surprised if Cale Makar was there or Nate. They're all big golf fans. And so to have an event like that right in your backyard, I don't doubt that there's probably a handful of Avs players there. I haven't gotten on and looked much today. Nothing that I've heard of. Bama Metcalf again. Sorry if you already asked, but what's the latest rumblings on Askarov? It sounds like, he's requested the trade. He said he's not going to report to Milwaukee. And the word is out there that he's telling teams, I don't want to go to the AHL. So if that is something that the Avs were potentially interested in getting involved with, I mean, it would have to be, you'd have to move one of the goaltenders out and you'd have to give him a spot in the NHL. I have not been told by anyone that the Avs are pursuing that. But I do just think, I think it would make too much sense for them to not at least be involved in asking around on Askarov. So nothing really new in the last couple of days. But we know he is telling teams, I have no interest in playing in the American League. From Sheep Dipped, I wonder how much it will add/change Gabe's game from being able to force into a totally different role, how he sees and thinks the game. Look, part of the reason why I have him listed on the third line there is, look, the reality is he's gone 2 years without being in an NHL game. He's going to have to, it's going to be a big adjustment for him. What is encouraging about Gabe Landeskog's style of play is it translates all over the lineup, and it's one that historically ages really well. I actually don't think, especially if you had a guy like Cal Ritchie, which, by the way, I was told there's a lot of excitement around, even from guys like Nathan McKinnon, that Nathan McKinnon in the last few weeks has seen Cal Ritchie up close and has been saying, whoa, this kid's pretty good. I've talked to Nathan McKinnon about plenty of high-end prospects in the past. He is not quick to heap praise onto somebody. So if Nathan McKinnon, if Cal Ritchie's catching Nate's eye, that's probably encouraging, especially if you could saddle Gabe Landeskog next to someone like Cal Ritchie. I think that would do absolute wonders for Cal Ritchie. It's going to give some offensive punch. And again, we've seen it from Jared Bednar. If he did something like what I just laid out, something like that, there would be so many instances where Gabe Landeskog would offensive zone face-off out there with the top guys, things like that, power plays, whatever. But yeah, I think Gabe Landeskog's style of play is specifically tuned to do something like that. All right, we got one more question right now. Ooh, another one just came in. We got 2 questions right now. We'll probably take one more, maybe 2 if they're quick after that, and then we'll probably head out of here as they've slowed a little bit. Once again, from No in the chat, have you heard any rumblings on that Colton will be traded? Those have really died down. And part of the reason for that, I think, is what we talked about just a few minutes ago. Arturi Lehkonen, we don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. Yes, the Avs are going to need a little bit of cap flexibility a couple months into the season. But they're just going to be too short-handed, I think, to be dealing guys like Colton. And if you're dealing a guy like Colton, it's probably for something that's no money coming back. I just don't think that they're in a position to be doing that. I laid out, they're going to be a very deep team. If you get both those players back, you can maybe have a little bit more of those luxuries then. But yeah, I just don't think the Avs are in a position to do stuff like that. From Anthony in the chat, why does the NHL suck at marketing so much? First game of the season is Blues at Kraken at 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 8th. No one will be watching at that time. Look, coming out of the COVID season, I was advocating, because the NHL, it had fallen into their lap, that they could have adjusted their schedule. I thought I was out there saying you should start the season with the Winter Classic. That should be the first game of the regular season calendar. Is outdoors, big spectacle. It's the only game of the day. You make a huge deal out of it on New Year's Day. It's kickoff of the NHL season. And then I thought you should run January through September. But what do I know? I just work here. I know the NHL works really, really, really hard to not compete with the NFL. Love it or hate that, that's what they do. I don't know. I wish the NHL, there is some of this stuff where it feels like 1:30 on a Tuesday. Are you sure? That seems crazy. I don't doubt you. Oh, okay. Well, this is why. Is it a? Yeah. It's a global series game. So that's why. It's a October 8th is St. Louis and Seattle. It's not in Prague. Oh, wait. What? It's not a global series game. There's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So 1:30 puck drop in Seattle on a Tuesday? Ugh. That's horrible. I don't have an answer to that. You just brought it to my attention. That's terrible. I don't even have an answer for that. All right, this is a 2 to 3 year question. If Cal Ritchie is a 2C, would we move Casey to the wing? I'll say no. If Cal Ritchie is really that exceptional, where he's clearly overtaking Casey Middlestat as a 2C, I think you try to make Casey Middlestat a 3C until that gets too expensive, and you just try to be the best possible team you can down the middle. Go McKinnon, Ritchie, Middlestat, if everything goes very according to plan. All right, last one here, and I think it's a great one to finish on from Rise Hall. Do you want to see Bednar come back with his wings hairstyle this year or change it up? Look, this is my Jared Bednar haircut this summer. I'm with it. I'm with the JB flow. I genuinely, I did schedule a haircut for next week. I was really tempted to go into camp with the long hair because when I don't have a headband in, I've got the wings going on the hat, and I was just gonna see if Jared also had it going and see if I get like partial credit for that from him. But him and Mikko Rantanen have actually the last 2 seasons, they've gotten haircuts at the very, very beginning and then not cut their hair again for the rest of the year. So that's my prediction. I think we'll once again see Jared Bednar short hair and the season with long hair. I need some water. That's all we got, guys. 53 minutes. You guys are amazing. We'll do it again next week. We put out a poll last week, and this format overwhelmingly won between a couple polls that we did. So we'll be doing all throughout the season. We're trying to come up with the right name for this, like media press conference or something like that. But basically, guys, we're going to give you the opportunity all year long. We're once a week. We are going to hold a forum like this that's going to allow you guys to come in and ask your questions to us kind of off the cuff about what's going on with the team, what's happening with the season. We're going to try to provide as much access and insider information as we can. We'll try to have audio clips and stuff like that pulled so that if there's any of those that apply to the questions, we'll do that. But we're going to try to embrace, kind of doing our own pressers here this year to answer your guys' questions about what we're seeing and hearing behind the scenes. So we'll be doing these every week. Right now, I think we're planning on doing them Wednesdays, but I'm sure that'll shift as the season gets started. You'll hear from me, JJ, among other voices, answering the questions every week. And we'll probably even have a few weeks where we have a couple different people out here, and we'll get some folks, Evan from Colorado Hockey Now and Corey from Denver Post, Megan, all that stuff. So we'll answer questions and have people from other outlets coming on and all of that. But I'm having fun doing it. Thank you guys very much for participating. Thanks again to Jay. These ones are always a little bit more involved than our standard show. So thanks, Jay. For Jay, I'm Jesse Montano answering your guys' questions. We'll be back doing this again next week. We got a show coming up tomorrow, talking all things Abs and NHL. That'll be myself and JJ Jerez. You should do a collab with Sinbid for the start of the season. I'll DM him today. We did one to kick off the year last year in Vegas at the rookie tournament. So I'll see if we can get Sinbin on again this year. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Take care.